WLCN, high on the hill on Lazy Row. WLCN, the Viewpoint program. We meet every Wednesday morning, don't we, Mrs. Busby, or try to?
Well, weather permitting.
Yeah.
We had our first non-meeting. We were
Yes.
going to talk about the food bank, which is kind of a necessary thing in today's economy,
That snowed out.
to say the least. And we had a snow day. Now, school people would understand that term, snow day, right? Yeah.
There are a couple of things I'd like to touch on here before we get to the 9 o'clock stage. We were discussing off-air the matter of renters and property owners, and some folks who rent seem to think that they're not paying taxes on the property. Well, they're at their head in the sand somewhere along the line. I'm sure that if you stop and think about it, the landlord or the rentor, as opposed to the rentee, that's covered in their rent. They just don't seem to wake up and smell the roses on that one. Have you heard this kind of a conversation, Mrs. Anderson?
Yes, and basically when you explain to people that the rent does go up in proportion to the property tax because the person who is the landowner or the property owner has to cover their expenses, then they kind of understand that this is really a helpful thing because their rent will hopefully stay the same. I mean, I can't guarantee that the landowner isn't going to raise the rent at some point in time, but
it really does affect everyone. I mean, whether you're a property owner or you're a renter or you're a student, because the students are going to benefit from this, and the high school has promised to rebate or swap the sales tax with the property tax. So
That's an important issue.
Yes, it's very important. Property taxpayers will get money back, so their property taxes are going to be lower, which is great if you're if you own property, you're a homeowner, and of course the most important is the students are going to benefit by getting a great facility to learn in.
Right.
we think it's an economic development issue.
And it is.
In a very great respect. A lot of times when people come to town and they're looking for a place to locate, they want to see what the schools look like because they feel that how a community invests in its schools is how a community values education in that community, and particularly if you have children or if you've been a child or if you know some children.
My brother is the only person alive who was never a child.
Is that right? He probably knows some children, though. The majority of people, particularly if they're looking to relocate, want to know about the schools, and they take a drive around, and first impressions aren't always the most accurate, but they certainly are lasting impressions.
Yes.
We have people come into our office all the time and ask about the schools in the area.
They do.
Yes, they do. We had one yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, three things that newcomers are looking for: education, religion, and health care.
That's correct.
And those are the three prime things, and if you kind of cover the bases there, your community's in pretty good shape.
We certainly have health care covered extremely
oh, my goodness,
well.
Yes, that's wonderful. I want to go back now to this. May I skip back to digress once again to go back into Burgandy's campaign?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
but let's just, if I may interrupt.
You may interrupt.
Yet again.
It's 51% over.
648-5510. If you are a candidate, are supporting a candidate, if you have an issue with this 1-cent sales tax, that phone line is open until 9 o'clock. And you can call and say whatever. So don't feel that you're being disenfranchised, because you're certainly not. Excuse me, Bill.
Well, I think that was very well stated, Mr. Station Manager. Back to your candidacy, I asked the question off air if you had opposition, and would you address that question, please?
Opposition for me running for board?
Yes, please. Yes.
Honestly, I wouldn't say I've had a whole lot of people that said, "Oh no, you can't do this." But I've had a lot of people that are skeptical. Oh, are you sure you want to run for the school board? Are you sure you want to get into that? And absolutely, I'm sure. I think I'm a great candidate for a school board. I'll bring a fresh, new perspective to the board. And, I mean, the members on the board right now, they're older, they've got more knowledge, more experience. You bring in someone younger, new like me, I can give them the information from a new perspective, from someone who walks through those hallways every day. So I think that will be very beneficial. But I think I have a lot of support with the community. So.
On that knowledge, business. I am old enough to be your at least grandmother, if not more. And I wouldn't go toe-to-toe with you. And I wouldn't go toe-to-toe with my 13-year-old granddaughter either. So I don't think that your age is any measure of your intelligence. And certainly, as you say, you're walking the halls, for crying out loud. You ought to know what's going on there. And if you're not, you must be deaf and blind. And that would be a tragedy.
And are other folks running for the seat for which you're running?
What do you mean? Like,
Do you have opposition in there?
oh yeah, I'm running for a 4-year term, and there are 3 seats available, and there are 4 people running for those 3 seats. And then there is also a 2-year term that is available with 1 seat, and no one is running for that one. So what happens in that situation is the board would appoint someone. I think an interview process would be conducted in order to find a candidate for that. So even if I don't make the 4-year position, then I hope I would get the opportunity to be selected for the 2-year position.
I think it's nice news that there are 4 people running for 3 seats. Many times we have a hard time getting enough people to run for open seats. And that's so tragic because, as you've said about yourself, there's no reason why you shouldn't be involved. Everybody, we own it and we owe it.
That's right.
And you're going to own it and owe it pretty soon yourself.
Yes. Coming up fast.
We were talking about monies generated if this tax is successful. And Mrs. Anderson has provided us with a printout here as
This
to...
is approximate, and it was based on the figures from last year from a 0.5% tax that's collected for, I believe, emergency 911 or
Okay.
something. It's got a special name. I don't know what the name of it is.
So specifically here in Lincoln at 404 Lincoln High School, we would generate approximately $400,000.
Correct.
That's a big item.
That is a
Yes.
huge item.
And that's pretty painless to have acquired that $400,000 in real life. Lincoln Elementary, Lord knows we're pretty close to that, having worked with those folks for a long time and having worked with one of the best administrators we ever had, in Mr. Plotner. Going to generate about $600,000.
There are people who are going to just look at this peripherally and say, well, that's not fair. Look at the difference in the school districts. Well, look at the difference in the attendance
That's what it's
in the
based
school
on.
district.
It's based
That's
on the number
reason
of
for that.
students who attend that particular district. And if the student moves, so for example, when someone graduates from New Holland Middletown and goes to Lincoln High School, the money that New Holland Middletown would have generated for that individual will now be sent to Lincoln High School because the student now goes there.
The money
follows the student.
Well, that's the reason for what seems to be inequitable.
That's correct. It's a total of about $1.8 million per year. They estimate over 1 million people travel through Lincoln each year, and that's an awful lot of people, an awful lot of pennies.
Yes, it is
So-
a lot of pennies.
Well, I think you hit upon an important part, and that is the folks who are going by on 55 or any other, the folks that are passing through
Correct.
and stop for any kind of services, they're going to be kicking in.
Yes, they are.
And in a minor way, really, a very small way, we're going to be kicking into a fund that's going to be pretty substantial for our local schools.
And a lot
And it
of
hadn't
people,
come out of the local pockets.
That is
yeah,
correct.
and a lot of people don't realize that, you know, when we travel to other counties, we're contributing to their schools. So
Yes.
we're already doing that for other people. Let's do it for ourselves.
Turnabout's fair
Yeah,
play.
that's
But your
right.
mother told you that.
One of the things that I don't know if you realize, this was started basically in a few counties in Iowa, and the state decided that it was such a good idea that every county in Iowa now has this.
Is that right?
They felt that it was a very viable and simple solution to fund school needs as far as their maintenance and
Well, so
construction.
Iowa's a leader in more than corn.
Iowa is a leader. You know,
How
in
about
that.
that?
Yeah.
Great radio personality Bob Collins used to say there is no such place as Iowa.
There is, though. I used to live there.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about equity here, and there's a great deal of equity takes place on a sales tax basis, particularly, as we said a while ago, on people that are passing through the community. And as you pointed out, Ms. Henderson, if we go to Springfield or Bloomington, we're helping their communities and their taxes. So we need to keep it at home as much as we can.
Right now, if you go to Decatur or if you go to an Illini game, you're helping their schools because Macon County and Champaign County both have the penny sales tax.
They do. How is it going statewide? As you talk to other regional superintendents, do they feel that their areas are making an attempt to pass this?
Williamson County was the first one in Illinois to pass this. Williamson, and that's Marion.
Oh, that's a little south of here.
It is. They have received 24 payments. Well, the last report that I got, because their regional superintendent shares his report with the rest of us, he's the one that's the most familiar with it because he's been doing it the longest, but he shares all of the reports that he gives to his county. And the last one that he sent was the quarter that was collected in December. And they have now received over $13 million in that county.
Now, you did mention earlier, Mrs. Anderson, that the tax money will be collected by the appropriate
Department of Revenue
people.
And then it comes to me.
And then it comes to you. How much of that's collected comes back to you?
100%.
Really?
100%. No one gets this except the schools. Now,
that's excellent.
The law is set up to allow the funds to sit in the bank account for 30 days. And that's an agreement that has to be made with the individual school districts and my office. We are permitted by statute to keep the interest that's garnered on that account to use for basically administering the account. But that's an agreement that would have to be individually negotiated with each of the school districts, and that's something that, I'm not going to worry about until we find out whether or not this is going to actually happen. But 100% of the money that's collected in this one penny tax comes back to Logan County.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, because we work for it and we pay taxes, and then we pay all the people down there to divvy them up, and then we get back some. And I'm glad to hear that we get in the whole thing. Well,
and apparently it's paid very regularly. They have not missed a payment as far as being on time, from what I understand from my Williamson County colleague who's been at this longer than any of the rest of the
That'd be an
offices.
interesting, refreshing thing when it goes into some city coffers or state coffers, and have it dispensed with some degree of regularity as opposed to sitting on it for months and months and months.
That would be
That's an unfortunate thing.
a much-needed boost.
I'm thinking of all these folks, our pharmacists, for instance, and how long it takes them to get reimbursed. That's an incredible thing.
Right now they're working on paying September payments.
Yeah, and
The
this
state
is now
paying
almost
September
April.
payments
April
right
Fool
now.
to you, too.
September 15th, I believe, was the last that I'd heard. They hope to have some of the September quarter payments that the school districts owe. They hope to have those paid by June 30th.
We can think about ourselves as we collect our paychecks. If we were just now being paid for last September, there'd be rather a hue and cry, wouldn't there?
There would
Plus,
be.
we'd all be very thin.
Yeah, in some cases that might not be a bad idea. I'm not looking you, my dear.
Picking up those pennies off the ground.
We appreciate very much. Number one, Mrs. Anderson is once again taking time from her very busy office, and we appreciate that very much.
My pleasure, anytime.
And this young lady here has skipped school for
Just for a little bit, though.
Just a little bit, though. And she's going to rush right back to 404 and resume her regular class schedules. I'm going to get to my closing statement, but before I do, if I may, Mrs. Busby, I'd like to, now we have a special program. I do a Sunday morning swing show each Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and I worked very hard, Mr. Ash, on this one that we will put to bed here very shortly. I have two of the most renowned musicians in the profession. We're going to showcase them Sunday morning. Jonathan and Darlene Edwards are just outstanding. this, be sure and listen to that. There's some wonderful music. Well, I'd like to close with something that's apropos of the statement here, as the subject of the day. And this one I found says, the money that is spent on schools this year, that is not spent on schools this year, will be spent on jails later. Thank you for Viewpoint.